Uh, One of India Home board members, Neetu Jain, attended sessions with Ms. Sarapi Pandya, and she was impressed, and she suggested that we take her advice about our food and health. This is a very interesting aspect of how we treat our food or how food treats us, the psychology. There's only one person in the entire field who has done that from psychiatry point of view, but not psychology point of view. So psychology of food is a very important thing. We eat the foods that we like. As a layperson, I assume that has a big psychological bearing. If I tell you suddenly to stop eating rice or wheat and eat quinoa, unless you are psychologically prepared, maybe you will never do that, even if that is the best food. So now I invite Ms. Sarapi Pandya to explain us how we can understand our own psychology and its relation to the food. Thereby, we can make the necessary changes and move towards healthy, nutritious foods or diets. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Raji, and thank you for having me here today. And I truly appreciate, I'm full of gratefulness for being able to speak on a very different aspect of food here. When Rauji approached me, it was more like, Surbi, are you going to say something which is different? We have already had 100 seminars on food and health. So first tell me what are you going to speak so that I understand it is different from our presenters of the past 100 meetings. And I said, let's talk about psychology of food this time instead of, because everyone already understands kind of what is their like what are the foods that are healthy and what are the foods that are not healthy. I mean, it's very simple. If I put like just two foods in front of you, probably let's say an orange versus a pizza, everyone would say that yes, pizza is not so healthy food as compared to oranges. So our understanding from the exposure to the social medias, plus also several kind of the nutritional food sciences coming from the ancient India, which is Ayurveda and naturopathy, we all know these things, what is healthy for us. Despite that, why is it that we are having loads of health conditions today in the modern world? When we are so smart, when we are so intelligent, we know everything. Why is that happening? So truly understanding everything is not just dependent on the food. It is also dependent on what is our psychology when it comes to food. If I ask you one question right now, what is health for you? Right? Just think about it. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. Think about it. What is health for you? Probably you will get answers that having good amount of energy, no fatigue, having a body which is diseaseless, where I don't get headaches every day, I don't get attacks of flu, I if I can get rid of my diabetes, if I can get rid of my blood pressure, all these conditions would come to your mind where the disorders in the body and the health have started to begin, right? So probably the definition of health has been put onto into a very limited understanding today. We are trying to see that we are healthy if we don't have these diseases. That is how we have started defining health as. If someone asks you, are you really healthy? Well, I'm really healthy, but I'm having these conditions and stuff like that. So we need to know that that is not what health is. Health is a completely different dimension of operation. It is not really every single day fighting with the aches and the pains and these blood pressures and diabetes and constantly thinking what I can eat and what I cannot eat, all these aspects are not at all related with health. We have put these in the category that probably we think that it's only the food, it's only the medications or the supplements that can bring us into a healthy state of well-being, and that's where the health we restore, right? But actually the definition of health is having boundless energy. It is, we don't, when we define health, it is really not defining what diseases, that the diseases are a part that has deprived us of our health. Health is something that we are naturally born with. It's supposed to be our very natural state of existence. Majority of the kids, I mean, all of the kids supposed to be, when they're born, are just naturally healthy. And how do you see that? It goes through their whole being, like radiating the energy of happiness and love that you see spilling over when you hold a little kid in your hand. That is health. That gives you joy, that gives you pleasure. That's what health is. So health is not defined by not having disorders. Health is defined by having boundless happiness, having boundless joy. It is a platform from which you, as a human being, as an advanced species, to have an ability to jump onto higher modes of functioning, of being a human being, like being 100% capable of doing everything that you're meant to be into this human form. So that's the very basic thing that we need to understand, that our definition of health is not literally saving ourselves from those eggs which someone is throwing on our head from third or the fourth level. It is really going up to the third and the fourth level and seeing exactly what is causing these eggs to be fallen onto me, and I'm not supposed to be just dodging them off. Like, today I have headache, so I'm trying to dodge it with some medications. Today I have some pain, so I'm trying to dodge myself from. So we are trying to just save ourselves from these attacks which are happening everywhere. But there is a place where there is no presence of these attacks at all, and that place is health. That place is when you raise yourself to that level of efficiency. And how do you get that level of efficiency? For that, definitely nutrition holds a very big role in this, but our psychology holds another major role here. So in order to understand that, let's understand what is pleasure trap. Now this is a motivational triad. In actual sense, triad means it is a triangle which has got three extreme ends to it. The first point of the motivational triad is seeking pleasure, where we are constantly, I mean, this is an inbuilt circuit inside us. Number one, understand that it is meant to be inside the human beings. It's meant to be inside many species. It's there. But we have used it. We have not made a proper use of this. There were reasons why this motivational triad was fit as an inbuilt circuit inside us. So the first extremity of it is seeking pleasure. So we would indulge into anything. Let's talk about food right now. So we would indulge into eating a pizza because it gives us pleasure. Number one. So we enter into the motivational triad the moment our pleasure gets activated. So now with this pleasure, we go into the habit. Habit develops later on. So we go into the first experience of eating the pizza or more palatable foods, which are which create a sense of excitement inside us. This excitement is basically created in that pleasure zone by two major things. One is sugar and other is fat. These are the two things that bring us into the into that area of the motivational triad. So the moment we start eating into these palatable foods, experiencing these palatable foods, which are high on sugars, high on salts, high on fats, we get into the motivational triad, we get into the pleasure state. Now, the moment we go into the pleasure state, the last two edges of this triangle gets activated. So one of this is avoiding pain. So avoiding stress, avoiding pain, which means that we will, at any cost, want to get to that pleasure state, and we would absolutely avoid any kind of pain that can be created within us. But to understand this pain, we need to understand what is the conservation of energy. That's the third. So pleasure trap is like triangle. The first one is you enter into this trap because of your pleasure sensations, and then you are going into the pleasure because you want to avoid the pain. This pain is more about you want to avoid certain emotions inside you. You don't want to face um, certain negative feelings that you may have. You may have a feeling of blankness because of people, um, because of several things. Several emotional factors can come in here, so we want to avoid pain. So these go hand in hand. But in order to avoid pain and go to that pleasure of enjoying that food, we actually take the shortest route, least stressful way. This is the conservation of energy, the third part of the triad. So when you put them together, see how it works. So suppose in front of you, I keep two things. On one side, give you a slice of pizza, and on the other side, I give you let's say, a difficult fruit, a pineapple, right? What would you choose to eat? Think about it. What would you choose to eat? Now listen to and go behind the psychology of why you are choosing what you eat. If you look at the pleasure trap, you will see that the excitement that draws you towards picking up that piece of pizza is the pleasure because of your experiences of the high palatable foods of the that the pizza provides. It's like high on carbs, it's high on sugar, it's high on several things that the salty taste, right, that makes the food very palatable for us, and we become addictive to these things. I will tell you later why we get addicted to these things. So the moment you enter into it, now definitely your choice is not a pineapple. Why? Because pineapple is a lot of stressful job. You do have an experience of its sweet taste, but going to the pineapple and cutting it and peeling it off and removing its skin and putting it into pieces is going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort in order to do it. But to just grab onto that one slice of pizza would be very easy for you. It is the most least effortful way for you to grab onto that piece. So we would always choose by nature foods which are easily accessible to us. They give us pleasure, they give us high pleasure sensations, and they become a very great idea for us to get into a state of excitement and to avoid our own internal emotions within ourselves. So this whole emotional triad, the pleasure trap, it gets activated the moment we take a decision of what we want to eat and what we don't want to eat. So now what this thing actually does is there is a specific neurotransmitter in our body that gets activated, which releases a hormone known as dopamine. This dopamine is a pleasure giving or an excitement giving hormone. This it's a juice, right? So when it releases into the body, you get excited and you want more and more of that stuff. So the moment the dopamine release happens in the brain, and this happens again mainly because of the intake of sugar and the intake of fats, highly fat products, or even high calorie intake foods, high fats, that leads to the release of dopamine. Um, now, please understand that dopamine is supposed to be inside us. It is supposed to be there because we need to feel pleasure. If we don't feel pleasure, then we don't want to, we are not motivated to eat. We are not motivated to go through our reproductive cycles. So, that basic motivation was the reason why this motivational triad was fit inside us as a system. But now, because it gives us pleasure, of course we would want to go for it again and again, but we have gone into a certain level of adaptation. Now this is known as a hedonic treadmill. Now what happens is, once you start eating sugary foods, anything which has sugar in it, just name it, we have so many favorites, and whenever we call what is our favorite food, it would always be some kind of sweet dish, some kind of sweet dessert, some kind of cake, something that we cannot resist. You would mostly find these foods filled with either sugars or high on carbs. Now what happens is that the moment you get indulged into it, the motivational triad, the pleasure trap becomes activated. Then the dopamine starts releasing from our brain. This dopamine gives us pleasure. With this pleasure, we go into a treadmill of pleasures. Now there is one basic level setup. We experienced a higher level of excitement, a higher level of happiness with that kind of food. Our body adapts to it. Now next time you would want even higher levels of satisfaction to satisfy that level of happiness. After that you would want a little bit more higher level of excitement. Even that slice of pizza may not give you as much pleasure as different varieties of food may give you. So we constantly go into seeking varieties from different foods and make it more and more palatable for us, make it more and more enjoyable for us. So we start seeking good places with good group of people, and then more and more higher and higher levels of how things can excite us in order to bring our release more dopamine. So we actually create a kind of resistance in our body of the dopamine, because you cannot feel your initial level of happiness anymore. You have constantly increased your levels of happiness, and now your level to feel excited is not here. Like a chirping of a bird will not excite you anymore. A normal simple food that you take at home is not going to excite you anymore. It's not giving you as much pleasure. That's too simple, too bland for you now, because your taste buds have completely changed for highly palatable foods. Now your excitement level is here. So what is happening is it keeps on increasing, and this is known as hedonic treadmill. So the word hedonic here actually was identified by the neuroscientists very much after, uh, initially scientists understood that there is a metabolic pathway. The metabolic pathway is that we feel hungry and we want food. That is the metabolic pathway, and that was supposed to be natural pathway for every species in the world. Now they couldn't find the answer. Why are human beings facing so many diseases compared to all the other species in the world? In order to find an answer to that, scientists investigated into the emotions of human beings, and they found that it is actually the hedonic pathway. It is a different pathway than the metabolic pathway that gets activated in the brain, and this is very much related with the pleasure sensations. And human beings constantly lurking and constantly running after the pleasure sensations, and the hedonic pathway gets activated. Now for us the food is not really just a need, it is actually a higher level of excitement and satisfaction. So the level of adaptation we have done to our pleasurable sensations and the dopamine has gone up and higher and higher. And now we don't feel that satisfied with our very simple basis of food. So we are on a treadmill and we keep on increasing it. We constantly want new varieties for food, new varieties for food, and we cannot stop ourselves. What does this lead us into? Several habits that we have today. If you watch, we have emotional hunger habits. We would eat things because we want to fill in a space inside us, which we are depriving ourselves, which is depriving ourselves from our happiness. There are certain emotions inside us that we want to not face, not we just don't want to address certain situations in our life. And you will see that as a result of that, we have developed binging habits, we have cravings, we constantly snack in between the foods. We are also into a state where we get very low tolerance levels of our emotions because of constantly involved into eating foods which are leading towards a very higher level of emotional satisfaction. So what happens is, during the negative states of emotions, we are constantly avoiding them and not addressing them, and that becomes a replacement that we choose with the foods for these things. So most of the time, if you will see the reason behind why am I going after this food, you will see that, just pause for a minute, just observe it. Maybe just give yourself a minute, take a deep breath and pause the moment you're attracted to a food. And what happens is that in that moment you will see that there is some blankness of emotions, there is some void inside me, there is some emotion that I'm trying to seek, or there is some kind of pleasure or happiness that I want in this moment, right? But the easiest way, look at the pleasure trap again, the easiest way to avoid that pain of negative feelings, we would want to fill it up with something that gives us happiness, and something that gives us happiness is food. Immediately we know the reward we get after eating the food, so immediately we fall into that trap after the food, and we feel satisfied, we feel excited, and now we can no longer feel our lower emotional state that actually triggered the reason for us to follow those highly palatable foods or foods that excite us and give us pleasure. We're not able to see the reason behind why we are eating what we are eating. And if we give ourselves those pause moments, see that it is something else which we are trying to cover up by doing something else. So the happiness seeking attitude, reward seeking attitude finally leads into feelings of depression, feelings of a lot of discomforts in the body, such as lifestyle diseases. We start binging a lot, and that leads into obesity, a lot of accumulation of fat around our skin, around our organs, like visceral fat and subcutaneous fat. It's all starts accumulating around these organs, and then finally leads to retardation of the organs, heart diseases, blood pressure, diabetes. I mean, just name all these lifestyle diseases. Even I would say the autoimmune diseases, the so-called arthritis, they're all psychosomatic in nature. If you truly see, even cancer to a very large extent is a psychosomatic disease. Majority of the time you will see that it's the emotions. Just investigate within yourself, you'll see it is actually the emotions which are leading me into these habits of foods which I'm constantly choosing with high calorie intakes, and which has absolutely no nutritional value inside it. So when we are binging on craving for foods and taking foods most of the time as our preferences, it would always be high calorie intake, high carbohydrate intakes, and we're trying to deprive ourselves from nutrition. You know why? Because high carb foods, high calorie intake foods, they don't have nutrition inside them compared to the food which is completely nutrition. So just compare two plates here, one plate which is full of salad, right? Suppose a complete platter of salad, and on the other side you get some bread to eat. Now comparative to the both, that little piece of bread which is full of carbohydrates, its nutritional value is probably 1/10 or 1/20th of the nutritional value of that big platter of salad. But we will not choose salad. You know why? Once you start eating salad, what happens is you're going to say, Surbi, you know what? Now something, I mean, I don't want to, because my jaws are aching. I'm tired of eating it. How much can I really eat? Because in order to complete that our nutritional requirement of we would rather choose a shortest route, which is eating that little piece of bread to satisfy our hunger. But we don't realize that the hunger is not really a hunger, it is lack of nutrition inside the food. But we just keep on binging on these foods which are high on carbs to fill our tummy. But eating that big platter of salad to in order to fill up our nutritional deficiency, it would be completely avoidable, because it is a stressful job for us. Our toothache, our jaws start paining, and then we don't feel satisfied because it takes a long time to finish up that big platter of salad. So just compare things, what is happening. It is all inside our head, what we have chosen, how we get into this pleasure trap, how we constantly want to avoid, take the shortest route in order to go to the most pleasurable sensations that can excite us. So this is all dopamine rush inside our body, excitement, pleasure, and it keeps on building upon it, leading to an adaptive method where we are repeating the patterns again and again, and we cannot stop. What happens? We ultimately land up into addictions, right? Nobody would say I'm addicted to sugar. Is there anyone right now in the group who would say I would? But tell me, has there been a single day when you have lived without sugar? there would be sugar in some or the other form. We have some sweet tooth. Or let's talk about savory foods, or let's talk about salty foods. Can you, if you're not a sugary person, how about, can you stop binging on your salty taste onto those processed foods? So now, talking about processed foods, very interesting. So what do these food manufacturing industries do? There are two major uh, ingredients that they put inside our foods that actually lead us into what you say, sensation of liking the food even more than actually you're supposed to be. So these two major ingredients are, one is the high fructose corn syrup. You will see that most of the foods which has got the sweet taste in it will have this ingredient inside it. And the second one is, it's glutamate, monosodium glutamate. It's I'm just it's yeah, it's monosodium. The name that writes onto those processed packages is MSG, the short form of that, monosodium glutamate. Exactly, that's what it is. So these two ingredients are actually meant, and they are purposely put inside these foods. If they don't put it, trust me, you will not like the taste of the food. You will not like the taste of ice creams and desserts. You will not like the taste of all the processed foods that we eat without these two ingredients in these foods. You will have it by nature inside it. Look at also the ingredient of palm oil. I mean, all these are meant to be put inside it in order to give us pleasure. And you know what kind of pleasure? A consistent pleasure. Which means that if you eat, you all have favorite restaurants, isn't it? You all have favorite dishes in those favorite restaurants. That's why you constantly go to those restaurants. Now what is happening is that, and you have those lists ready. I want to go to Indore just to go to Sarafa to eat these specific food. So everything is fixed for us. We know what gives us pleasure. We are like drawn to these foods based on our previous experiences, right? So what is happening is, when you have these specific ingredients put into the foods, the marketing industry is playing on your emotions, because these ingredients make you excited. And when you get excited, you get higher experiences of pleasure inside your body. When that happens, you want to repeat that pattern of that pleasure constantly again and again, right? You want to go back to those places to have, or even sitting where you are today, just thinking about going to that place and enjoying that food, you already saturates your mouth with a lot of salivary experience of something good happening inside you. It excites you. And actually, just by thinking about the foods also, the dopamine can start rushing in your brain. So it is all marketing techniques. Without these ingredients, you will not really like the food as much. Okay, imagine snacking on some the save and the mixture and those, the chickpea snacks that we take. Those are highly palatable, right? Because of the high salt in it, or some foods with high sugar in it, high fats in it. And imagine that eating the same foods without having those ingredients in it, eating it the way it is naturally meant to be. Would you even like its taste? You won't even touch it. You don't want to get to it the next time also. So what these marketing industries, they maintain those levels of excitement inside you by making sure that these products are in exact quantity in every food possible, which is a processed packaging foods and the foods that you enjoy in the restaurants. And they make sure, you know why they make sure? Because they have tapped into another psychology of human beings. So suppose you go into the market, you get or you go into the nature and you see an amazing apple tree, and you get that one single apple from it and you eat it, and suddenly you get amazing pleasure and dopamine rush inside you. That's like very natural state of from eating that sugary sweetness from the natural apple. Next time, said, I had a wonderful taste of that apple when I went to that farmland and I plucked it from the tree, and it was such an amazing experience. And next day, you go to the grocery store and you see loads of apples there, and you pick up a couple of apples and you bring it home. Um, Now what happens is, one of the apples you pick up and you start peeling off, and you are trying to relate that the taste of this apple should be exactly the same that you had the pleasure sensation while eating it in its raw states, right from when it was perfectly ripe in the garden, on those trees. But this time, this apple was not that sweet that you got from the market, and it is slightly having a savory taste into it, and you reject it immediately because it does not relate to the experience of your previous apple. And you know what might happen? You may actually have a tendency to avoid eating apple completely all the way, say for months. And then one day again, your mom pushes you, hey, you should eat apple first day in the morning. Doctors say so, you should eat it. So you say, okay, I'll try it. And then you start trying that. But really, it will take months for you to get back onto that food. So in nature, the foods don't have consistency of giving you that pleasure. So the marketing scientists, they tapped into the pleasure sensation of the human beings, that if you provide them with consistent pleasure in the foods that they want again and again, if you change the taste of it, then they're not going to come to that restaurant again. So make sure that their favorite food needs to have exactly same ingredients the way it's meant to be. And that's why we constantly go back and back and repeat those patterns again and again. This is also the case with the addictions that that we may have in our lives. Sugar is an addiction, and then just name it. Probably, I don't know, but yes, smoking is an addiction. These alcohols is an addiction, and you know what? I will tell you. Even eating high carb foods is an addiction, because eating carbs leads to eating more of carbs. That's what the process is. That's what carbs are meant to be. And the reason for this is, the moment you take the carbs inside your tummy, the byproduct of those carbs is actually sugar that goes into the blood. And because of that sugar, the brain gets a message and it gets a dopamine rush. It wants it again. So the byproducts of the carbohydrates, byproducts of these high starchy foods, and the sugar itself, the refined sugar mainly, right? It's all sugar, which leads to dopamine rush. The moment dopamine gets activated, your psychology begins with it, the excitement, the pleasure, and then you seeking rewards through these excitements and pleasures, and trying to avoid all the negative states of your mind, emotional emptiness, and filling it up again and again by constantly binging and snacking and eating those foods, highly palatable foods, binging onto those processed foods and those packagings. It all triggers because of the way this chemical is creating a sensation inside us. We have to go back to our very normal state of life in order to in order to get into a complete health state, in order to get rid of the discomforts and the diseases we are facing today. It is very simple. Okay, it is really simple. In order to get to your very core state of fulfillment and feeling a level of bliss, how do you know what is the difference? Yes, dopamine definitely leads to secretion of pleasure and excitement, but there are more chemicals inside you, which are magical chemicals. These are oxytocins and serotonins that give you calm and peace and happiness. And when you do eating is like choosing every single ingredient in your food and being aware of it constantly. That is the moment actually which gives you real bliss inside you. Has anyone tried that? Try it for a moment. This time today, probably when you open up eating your foods, try to be mindful about it. Try to take every bite of it and see how that bite feels you inside your mouth, how the saliva in your mouth is mixing up with that food and creating a sense of joy. And then see how it goes into your esophagus, goes into your digestive tract. Feel it till it goes into the stomach, and just get in tune with that observation of mindfulness every single bite, so that its nutrition can be extracted very well into your intestines, into your different parts, and it can rejuvenate you in the true sense. But that calmness and peaceness that you will feel, you would never feel it when you get excited with the constant experiences of high dopamine rush foods that we seek after all the time. So go after these natural experiences. The more and more you increase these natural experiences, that is the time when you will be coming very close to taking care of your emotions primarily. You will see that you will even pause into your emotional states and get rid of all these psychosomatic disorders, because they all start in our emotions. They all start in our negative ways of thinking. And the more and more we address to these feelings, we will see that our eating habits will change. We will stop binging automatically. There will be no cravings, because that that nutritionally dense food and eating it with so much mindfulness is giving so much joy and pleasure that you would not seek chocolates and go after it again and again, or have any kind of binging habits and processed foods. You will see a drastic change in your eating habits simply by eating mindfully and addressing your emotions before eating, knowing that you are eating this because you are trying to get rid of this feeling of lowness, depression, and you don't know where it's coming from. Today, a lot of medications and supplements also have a byproduct effect on us, on our emotions. We don't know why we don't feel happy. So I always ask everyone one question, like, what are the emotion you are feeling right now? Okay, is it happiness? Is it sad in this moment? Or is it like, I don't feel anything? Majority of the times I get an answer, I don't feel anything. We cannot feel our own natural state of happiness in our bodies. And trust me, there is no neutral feeling. If you don't feel anything, that means that is the state of sadness. So there's either happiness or sadness only, but we are not able to recognize it. We are not able to identify it, because we don't have time for it. Who has time to think about what is happening inside me? We just want to feel satisfied. That is it. We just want to feel excited. Something, a coffee, just think about a caffeine. We just want to feel excited, completely excited, in order to do that extreme stressful work, right? But we cannot trust our own internal levels of we have very high levels of energy, very high levels of energy inside us, but that does not come into experience. And the reason is that two are the two main reasons for it, why we don't feel our own real state of happiness and pleasure, which is inbuilt inside us. And if we are if we are filled up with those sensations, we will really not be seeking these high palatable foods at any moment, because we will be happy all the moments of all the times. And there are two major reasons. Is our number one is our gut microbiome. So everyone knows that in our gut nowadays, now scientifically it has been proven that there are millions of these bacteria inside our gut, right? But if you have seen the Netflix documentaries on You Are What You Eat, you will understand that, or the Game Changers, you will understand and realize it, that you think what you eat, basically. So what does that mean is that your gut bacteria, if it is a healthy gut bacteria, if it is a good bacteria, you will think good naturally. If your gut bacteria is a bad bacteria, you will, first natural thought that will come to you would be a negative state of mind, would be intolerance, would be you can't just tolerate even your own emotions, you can't even read your emotions. It would be very negative thought processes that will come to us. So the gut inside us, the bacteria living inside that gut, is actually deciding how to think. Can you believe that? You will debate with me. You will say that, no, Surbi, we don't believe it. How is it possible? How is it possible that I'm not in control of my own mind? How come my mind is being guided by my gut microbiome? That is true. Because if you have had a really starchy and full of carbohydrates and high calorie intake food, trust me, you will not be able to stand your kids and wife that day. If they trigger a slightest emotion inside you that triggers some resentment inside you, you're going to go blast. You will have no tolerance for it. Okay. But the day you have had really satisfied meal, satisfied means satisfies that, where the body gets satisfied, where the rush of the mindfulness of the eating rushes the serotonin and oxytocin and just proper amounts of dopamine in the body. That's the moment when you get pleasure, that real happiness. That day you will see that your emotional tolerance will be very high. So we are very much psychologically derived by the foods that we eat. So your happy foods, your nutritionally dense foods, which is full of nutrition, satisfies your gut microbiome. And then your first thought that comes to you would always be positive. You will be such an optimistic person in your life. You would always be seeking solutions. But the moment your gut microbiome is filled with negative bacteria, which is the bad bacteria, you will always be looking at problems in your life. and you will be seeking like a lot of analytical why, what, where, what is happening, and intolerances and emotional circumstances. All these things will come up inside us. So interesting fact, but you can research a little bit more on this. Yes, it is actually the bacteria which is deciding what we are supposed to think in that, feel in that moment, right? We can think better, but our feeling may not match our thinking, and that is happening because of the fight inside our own tummy. The more and more bad bacteria is there, very easy for us to have these negative thoughts. And the more and more good bacteria, your natural state of resilience is power on. It's like the highest state of resilience in that case. That's one of the things which I said is the gut microbiome, right? And there is another thing that I needed to address, which is very interesting. I'm forgetting about it. So I think let's keep it to this one, which is the gut microbiome, because this is something which we have never thought before. That can our psychological states really be influenced to such an extent by the bacteria living inside our gut? So looking at all these aspects, let us conclude upon a couple of things that. I would conclude it with a beautiful story, which I heard from one of my very close friends. And I was really very deeply influenced by it. And this is the story of Nagarjun, saint. Now, this saint, as you know, the saints are highly resilient people. They are highly mindful people. They know the count of each of their breaths. Yes, the second thing that I was going to tell you about was about breath. So think about it. If for health, really what health means is 120 years of beautiful way to live your life with your complete sanity. That's what health is. You never get attacks of flus, you never get headaches, you are always so much full of energy that you're able to wonderfully optimistic design your day with so much energy and zeal. That's what health is actually. So now what is happening is that this health is there and possible only because of certain circumstances that needs to be addressed. But let's listen to the story and then I'll come to that conclusion. So this Nagarjun, as a saint living on a highest potential level, is met by a thief. And when this thief comes to see, he sees that this Nagarjun has got a pot of gold in which he takes his baggings of the food from around the social circle. So he said that he looks like a beggar to me, but he has this bowl which is of gold, and people serve him so much, people respect him, he's such a high profile. How does he get to that state? I have so much from the stealings that I have done, but I'm still not at the level. So he says that, but you know what? This is an important bowl of gold. I really need it. If I have it, I will become really rich overnight. So he has the focus on that. So Nagarjun got a sense that why this thief is coming to him. So you know what he does? He just gives away the bowl of gold in which he was taking his baggings, and he throws it out of his window. And he knows that the thief is just standing there to grab onto it, and thief just catches that bowl. He says, how can he give me so easily this bowl of gold? I mean, what is that? He just goes completely out of state. He goes inside and tells Nagarjun, I mean, what is this? How can you give away this such a precious piece of gold to me? And not have even a single point of attachment to it. It can give you so much money to live for so many years altogether, but you don't care for it. And so he was so thrilled by the presence of this saintlyhoodness inside this Nagarjun. He said that, you know what, I want to become like you, I want to be like you, so that I can have these naturally in my life the way you have it naturally. You don't have to steal them. I have to steal them in order to gain them. So Nagarjun says it's very easy to be like me. And he says, how can you do that? He said that the only thing you got to do is that next time when you go to steal, you say to yourself that you are stealing. Talk to yourself, observe it, that you are the one who is stealing. And the moment you will say that I am the one who is stealing this, that is all you need to go. And then go ahead and steal it. That's totally fine. 1 day passed, 2 days passed, 3 days passed. After a couple of days, this thief comes back to Nagarjuna and he says, you know, you have made me a beggar today. The reason is I'm not able to steal. The moment I start stealing, I feel that someone is watching me. I'm watching myself stealing it. And when I see myself stealing it, I address it, I know it. I'm not able to keep it into a dark corner. It is exposed. The moment it is exposed, that is the moment when I cannot steal. So I could not steal all these days, and I don't know what to do, what else to do with my life. And that is why I'm here. That's when Nagarjun said, now you have started mastering yourselves. Now is the place where you are going to turn into gold, because you will no longer be driven by these addictive habits of creating excitement and pleasures in your life, right? So this is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to observe what we do. We are supposed to observe why we do what we do, right? We are supposed to address our emotions behind our binging habits. So what is making me lead into these traps, into this pleasure trap? The moment I enter it, I need to identify this is my pleasure trap. I've entered into it. It is going to take me into some or the other kind of disorders. Today in the world, the highest number of disorders that has been addressed: heart disease, cancer, and then there is diabetes. These are the three top scoring problems. But even higher than that is actually the death cases. It's actually the treatments given by the doctors, because it's not the treatments given by the doctors, it's actually the medications, because each and every of these medications have got side effects in them, and these side effects immediately hamper on our emotions. We cannot feel our own real self once our emotions are cannot be read properly. So the whole trick, actually, it's the easiest and the simplest way to restore health. The easiest trick is just go into the observation, see yourself, watch yourself. That's the psychology starts changing. You start changing, your habits start changing, right? And so that was the first thing. Second important thing that I had been missing out all the time is the breath. You know, Buterico was a scientist who discovered several years back that your health can be found out. How healthy you are or how unhealthy you are, it will depend upon how your breath is. So if your breathing style is short and fast, or it's short and not going inside your whole tummy, those breathing styles tell us what kind of disorders we may have in our body. So the breath is a very important factor. We all know that tortoises live to 150 to 200 years, right? But a dog lives only to 25 years. The reason is their breathing technique. A dog will breathe 30 breaths per minute, right? But a tortoise will breathe 2 to 3 breaths only per minute. That's why it is able to extend. So when you are breathing with its resting periods properly, you are giving rest to yourself. You are doing a lot of mindfulness. You're observing, you are pausing in between, giving time to observe. So the second thing that you all need to address is your breath. See, the moment you slow down your breaths, the moment you deeply inhale and exhale and slow down, mix it together, do very light breathing, that is the time when you will be able to observe things better, and your binging habits and the excitement seeking habits and this hedonic treadmill that keeps on rolling to the adaptive habits that we have for creating excitement in our body, everything will pause. So just one little experiment: combine your breath with your eating, and your psychology for the food will completely and immensely change. I think I will pause here. There are several factors that needs to be addressed when it comes to